It's 5:41, and this is a meeting of the Finance Subcommittee. We have, this is regarding the investment policy, city investment policy with city investment. So can the clerk please call the roll?
Councilor Elliott?
Here.
Councilor Broderick?
Here.
Councilor Mendonça?
Here.
3 present.
Recently, we received a communication from the city manager. Actually, you know, Councilor Murphy, do you, this information really started with your motion. So do you want to, do you want to elaborate, or you want to, figure to give you the first opportunity to speak? Because this originated on your motion, and I know I referred it here, but no, okay. So why don't we go right to you, Mr. Mr. Manager, Mr. Moses, on the issue of the investment policy, and I guess a program that, a communication that we received for you, not only regarding the investment policy, but a program that you're rolling out.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. As you just indicated, this in large part stems from a motion that Councilor Murphy made, asking us to look at the possibility of leveraging the city's investment of monies with local banks or banks, with the intent being that it would leverage further investment in the community. Obviously, as you know, the city has a strategy with regards to investment based on the investment policy that is part of our overall financial policies that is basically focused upon 3 major categories. The security of the money. We obviously don't want to invest in any institutions or instruments that are that lack proper security, so that raise the risk of the city losing money, which certainly there are communities that have done that in the past, and we certainly don't wish to do that. We also have as part of our strategy, the liquidity of the money. If the city needs money in any type of urgent situation, we want to be able to get at it. We don't want that money tied up for long periods of time, that we would not have that liquidity that is essential to the operation of the city. The third leg is the yield, that we're trying to maximize the return on our investment, so long as the institution is secure, the money is liquid. We want the highest return, just as any homeowner or any individual would want to be able to get that return on their investment. They want the most money possible. But we recognize, certainly, in response to Councilor Murphy's motion, that there are some other advantages that we may be able to gain for the city through the investment of our money, and that is the notion of increasing investment by our banks or by the banks in local businesses or for the local residents. So Mr. Moses has done some work in developing a program that we hope to roll out to the financial institutions to give them the opportunity to get a chunk of our money, so long as they are secure, their money is liquid, that there is adequate yield, but tie that also to their further investment in the community. In some respects, I suppose it mirrors the notion of the Community Reinvestment Act, that you try to generate additional investment in your community through and in this case it would be leveraged through the allocation of funds. But I'll let Mr. Moses walk through the specifics of the plan. He modeled it on some discussions that I know that he's been involved with the State Treasurer's office, and I'll let Mr. Moses elaborate.
Actually, I developed this plan after talking with the treasurer personally on this, and several of his aides. We used his model. The idea is to provide extra money from elsewhere in our cash portfolio to bring more money than is already on deposit in local banks to local banks, up to $2 million per bank. The banks are required to lend that to Lowell businesses, The loans can be anywhere from $10,000 up to $500,000, and the business must be qualified as a small business, meaning there's a limit to the annual sales. Can't be used for passive real estate investment. And the bank needs to be headquartered in Lowell. And there's a reporting requirement. They have to report the amount of the loan and to whom they lend it, and they have to report semi-annually how many local jobs are created as a result of the loans. And so far, we're awaiting your input to make any tweaks to the policy itself. I haven't talked to any specific banks. I did, however, receive calls from a couple of banks. Unfortunately, they don't qualify because the calls were from non-Lowell banks.
Council Broderick.
Thank you. Through the chair. Mr. Moses, when you say headquartered, could you define that? I assume Bank of America is not headquartered in Lowell, even though they have branches here?
That's correct.
So it would have to be principal?
It really boils down to, I believe at this point, specifically Enterprise, Lowell 5, Lowell Bank, and Washington.
Okay. Would credit unions don't qualify?
No.
Okay. And they will qualify up to $2 million. That's the most they can get. And what is it based upon? How is there a sliding scale? Is it based upon their assets or?
It's up to
they
$2
wanna
million,
do?
and it depends on their appetite for the money.
Okay, so it's basically up to them. I didn't know if there was a limited amount of. Is there a limited amount of money? If there's, we're talking what, 4 banks?
4 banks. The only way it would be limited is if they're so small that other aspects of our investment policy trigger. For example, our investment policy says that we don't want to be more than 10% of the total deposits in any bank. That's just a safety issue, because if a bank runs into trouble, you don't want to be a 10% owner of that bank. Mm-hmm. And there are some other, there's state law. We can't invest more than 60% of the capital, paid-in capital and surplus of a bank. But I think that's not restrictive. I think in all cases we'd be compliant with state law at $2 million.
Okay. Do we have, or should there be any consideration as to how much the banks hold in Lowell deposits, residents?
I don't think, as it's written in the policy, it doesn't matter. Of course, when we're directing what should be done with what we place on deposit, we have a lot of leverage, but I'd be a little reluctant to tell the bank what they can be doing on attracting their own deposits, how they have to go attract them, and how they need to lend them. That's really their business.
No, I'm sorry. I probably didn't ask the question right. I mean, in terms of, I guess if there's, I say only $8 million, if we only need to set aside $8 million and there's not really any kind of, I guess, struggle over who gets what, there may not be a need for it, but I didn't know if there was any consideration for what percentage of a bank's deposits are from Lowell. You follow me? In terms of if there need to be qualifications as to
right.
splitting up the pie. If there's not $8 million, then everybody can't get $2 million.
Yeah. Well, there should be $8 million. We took a look at, back when Treasurer McGurl was here, we took a look at that, and we figured that we would have $8 million in the bank at any point during the year, regardless of cash flow fluctuations. It's hard to commit to a much higher amount because, there may be some points of the year where we have 70, 80, 90 million dollars in the bank. There may be other points of the year where we have 15 or 20 in the bank, but we'll always have 8 safe.
Okay. That's all I have. I think good job. I think we all said it before, and being creative and a way to, they're going to report semi-annually?
Well, they report their loans quarterly and the jobs semi-annually.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Donza?
Yes. Question I have is, have we gotten any feedback from any of the banks regarding the disclosure or the reporting requirements? I don't see any problem with either of those as stated, but I wouldn't want to create a program where they would reject participating because of these requirements. We might as well just say up front, well, it doesn't work. So I'm just wondering if we've gotten any feedback from potential banks that could participate, or if we could.
Well, again, I haven't gone out and contacted banks yet. I plan to do so as soon as all the program is completely finalized. Of the two banks that contacted me, I know at least one, probably both, are part of the Treasurer's State Plan. Those reporting requirements are exactly the same. So I know those two banks wouldn't have any problem. The local banks, I don't know until I talk with them. But again, it's voluntary if they feel that these reporting requirements, which were developed by the treasurer, are too onerous, they don't have to take part.
I understand that, but I'd like to have a program where at least a bank takes part. And,
Oh,
and,
I'm
sounds
pretty
like it will.
confident that local banks will. They'll want to publicize that they've helped create jobs in the local economy. It can't be a bad thing for them.
All right, thank you.
Council Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Moses. Do you have a list of your requirements for the program to qualify, like how many jobs were created? Do you have a list of something that you...
There's no requirement that they create any jobs. It's not like a TIF where we set requirements. Our requirement is they lend it to small businesses in Lowell. That's the requirement.
So-
we're hoping that we can document that they've created jobs because of that.
But you're not going to ask these banks to list the people that they've loaned money to. Are you going to do that?
We are going to ask for the businesses that they have lent using this money, but not out of their own portfolio, no.
Could you say the four banks again? Enterprise,
Lowell 5, Lowell Bank, and Washington. I could be mistaken. There might be another bank out there, but I'm not aware of them.
well, let me give you a brief overview of one and only one of our banks in the city, because I did some investigating work. This particular bank employs 98 people in the city of Lowell alone. They donate $1.2 million to nonprofits. In the last 5 years, they've loaned out $17.9 million to residential clients and $8.6 million in business loans. To say that the requirement or condition to receive this money specifies the ability to provide loans is redundant, in my opinion, when most banks seem to already do that, and then some. I did not have a proposal or the requirements in front of me, so I don't know really everything to ask. But what I want to state further is this. If the administration, either you, Mr. Moses, or Mr. Manager, feel that by putting a large amount of money in other banks outside of the city would be in the best interest of the city because of a better yield from outside banks, my question is this: did anybody here in this administration place a call to any local banks and ask them to quote a rate? Did anybody do that?
Yes, that's done frequently.
Well, the bank that I called did not receive a call. Nobody inquired from the city, so I investigated further and called 4 other banks, and they didn't hear anybody here call either. The few banks that I spoke to said no one called from the city administration. At least we could have given them a call. I don't know. You say you did, they say you didn't. So I don't know. I don't want to say anybody's lying, but I think that it's very easy to place a call. Now to my final concern, and I'm just concerned about this. In the proposal, each bank that would receive any money would be required to provide names or anything and addresses of companies who the banks are lending money to. I think it's a bit intrusive, in my personal opinion, and listening to other bankers, they think this is intrusive. I don't know what purpose does this confidential information serve. Perhaps to say how many jobs were initiated because of this loan, this money in the bank. That could be good. That's okay for statistics. But I think the rest is a little bit intrusive. The FDIC doesn't even ask the banks for this information, but we, the administration, we want to ask for that. I think that's a little going below the belt. Now, our local banks are offering something far greater. They have the capital, they yield strength, they have the liquidity, and they offer safety, because every cent of every dollar is insured in full. So you never really lose with the local banks, and that's the statement that I want to portray to you. I think we're cutting short our local banks here by going outside of the city. The motion that Councilor Murphy brought forth was tremendous, because these are the very people that lend money and create jobs. These are the very banks that give and sponsor so much. You can only look and see of the pools that were not open in the different banks that sponsored many, many things to make this city operate efficiently when we can't afford it, but with the state bringing in less money. I think we ought to bend over backwards and work as a team for our local banks. I just gave you an overview of just one, and I'm sure that is magnified greatly with the rest. I only did one bank for that statistics, but we should be working very diligently with our local banks.
I agree with you 100%. I don't disagree with you at all. The one thing I do want to answer, though, is the program, this particular program, is designed to increase deposits so that local banks will lend more. The reason we're asking for the names and addresses of the loans they make from this additional money is that's the only way we can verify they've complied with the program. Otherwise, you can put money on a deposit and they say, oh, sure, yeah, we lent it. You want us to do our due diligence and make sure that we're accomplishing the purposes of the program. The only way to do that is to verify.
And if I may, I think that we do have a number of banks, and in fact, as Mr. Moses indicated, we have banks that are located, have branches here in the city. Eastern Bank, for instance, it was a major contributor to almost every event that we have here in the city. Yet they're not really a local bank. They have a branch here. We have a number of financial institutions that we work with closely in partnership, and we are interested in working with all of them. And certainly, we're interested in investing locally with all of these banks, while simultaneously trying to get it's that balance that we're trying to strike of getting the best yield and getting working with the local banks and having them invest and in the community, and we invest in them. So it is a goal that we're trying to strike a balance of all this and maximize the impact.
Well, I think you're moving in the right direction. I want it to continue.
Absolutely.
Right. I also want to be very clear. The last report that I had us somewhere around $10 million with Enterprise Bank. if they chose to enter this program, that extra $2 million potentially would make it $12 million. We wouldn't ask for detail on loans on $12 million. It's only the $2 million.
And we have a very good relationship with Enterprise Bank in terms of the yield that we're getting from Enterprise is very good. And they've been very aggressive in contacting us and us in contacting them. But we, as Mr. Moses said, we shop this money around, or the treasurer does that when he invests that money.
I can tell you that Mr. McGurl has told me time and again that Enterprise has been over backwards to help the city, and they're incredibly flexible, and they're calling us, they're visiting us all the time. I don't know what other banks do that, but I know that he had mentioned that Enterprise does that constantly.
Well, all set, Council Mercia?
Yes, thank you.
Council Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very interesting topic. I'm sorry I arrived late. But just to name off a few banks, Gendar Credit Union, they're going to celebrate their 100th year next year. 100 years in the city. Lowell 5, Washington Savings, Lowell Bank, Enterprise Bank. My mother did business with Washington Savings Bank 75 years ago. And you talk about the local banking community. What do they contribute to the city in Greater Lowell? We wouldn't have fireworks one year. The Folk Festival wouldn't, I don't think, would function. Winterfest, the City Lights Parade, the school department, scholarships, I can go on and on and on. And I don't want to sound facetious, but there's a little cliche. We want to make sure that these banks loan money to the local community. Where do you think they're going to loan the money? To Iraq or Afghanistan? They're going to loan the money here. And I think what Councilor Mercia indicated, look how much money they have loaned to residential businesses, residential properties, and businesses in the city. So, I mean, I don't even know why this city invested so much money in banks in suburbia or other communities that don't care about Lowell. These banks do, and I can name a lot more of them. Enterprise Bank and Gendar Credit Union. When I was the mayor, I implemented this program with the LTC cadets to shovel snow off the sidewalks. Enterprise Bank, what do you need? Gendar Credit Union, what do you need? We wouldn't have got that program off the ground if it wasn't for the banking community. The Lowell Cooperative Bank, the president approached me at the garage. He said, no community should go without fireworks. We're going to donate. And that started a tremendous fundraiser. And Mr. Manager, that's where we're going now, aren't we? To fund our fireworks, to keep them going.
We have the
It's not in the budget.
Contributions.
Right, contributions. And that's what this city's all about. Contributions, reaching out and helping one another. And that's what these banks have done, not for 10 years, not for 20 years, for almost a century.
Just for point of clarification, we're not,
Manager?
just for clarification, in terms of the credit union, we're limited by law and we can't invest in the credit union. But, you know, all of these businesses, we have other businesses that contribute to the city as well, and we can't steer business to them just because they make contributions. There's certain requirements.
Mr. Manager, I'm not saying that.
No, I understand.
What I'm saying is the local banking community
Absolutely.
should have money from the city so they can loan money out to people. It shouldn't be in some other foreign bank, like Bank of America and other banks.
Well, by the same token, I mean, Bank of America lends a lot of money into the city of Lowell as well.
Well,
And you know, these banks also loan outside the city. a number of these banks loan outside the city. We want them to loan inside the city, and we want to support our local banks, and that's what this program is trying to do. We're trying to do all of those things.
But Mr. Manager, they've been doing that for years.
I understand that,
For
Councilman.
years.
I understand that.
Decades.
I understand that.
And Jen Jack Credit Union, they, in the turn of the century, they were incorporated to help the mill workers,
I know that.
to make sure the mill workers that their money was in a good, safe place. And it's been going on for 100 years.
That's right.
All set. Council Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This policy is to increase funding to the local banks, correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I couldn't gather that from the discussion taking place. The idea was based upon the economic principle that you have a higher rate of return because the money is kept within the community, so that the multiplier effect is far greater, sometimes estimated to be 3 times greater than what it would be if you were to have national banks, to invest money in national banks. I'm not going to defend the Bank of America here. I think that the idea behind the reporting requirements are that you ensure that it meets the intent behind the original motion, which was to get at that that higher rate of return. To not have the situation like we did on the national level, where there were all kinds of money given away and very little oversight in how that was used. That essentially the banks sat on a lot of money and are not allowing the access to capital for small businesses to continue economic development. And so I think those reporting requirements are important. They're important so that we, as a city, can conduct the proper oversight and make sure that the program is working as it should. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other concerns? I just had a couple of questions, Mr. Manager or Mr. Moses. Before we took the money out of the local banks, how much was in local banks?
I'm not aware that we took any money out during the time we've here. As a matter of fact, I think we've added money since I've been here. I don't know where that comes from, that we've taken money out.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. How long has the money been in Century Bank?
I don't know. We've had accounts with them. We had accounts with them before I got here. We had accounts. In fact,
okay,
we have not opened accounts with a new bank since I've gotten here. We've closed accounts.
Okay, let me rephrase again. How long has $25,165,860 been in Century Bank?
I don't know. That number fluctuates. There are times during the year where the city doesn't have $25 million. That number may have gone up and down for the last 20 years. I don't know.
Well, we should know, shouldn't we?
I could find out. If you want me to get you a report, I can find out.
Okay. So Bank of America, let me just move down. I'm just reading from your report. The next one is Bank of America. There's $22 million in there. How long, and this is the operating account, which by law has to be bid, correct?
And that one I can say with a little more certainty that the deposits at Bank of America were likely substantial more uniformly because we are under contract with them. They won a bid. We had opened a bid that was open to everybody, open to all banks, including Lowell banks. They won the bid. And so we have to honor that contract. It's a contract.
What were the terms of the bid? I'm just kind of curious. I've never seen the scope. It's not my purview.
I don't know.
but-
And if I may, the purpose that we were given for this meeting tonight was to discuss the investment policy that we've drafted up.
Right.
If the council is seeking,
Mr. Manager,
history
with all
of-
due respect, I
Well,
have a
think-
line
I
of
think-
questioning, so.
Well, okay, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
I think the bid-
Asking for dates and exact amounts, we didn't come prepared for that because that wasn't the purpose of the meeting.
Well, I
If we
understand.
were asked for that, we would have had that.
Mr. Manager, we're talking about investment policy. I think, I'm just asking questions. I would like to know, and I think that was the motion, and I think it all plays in, when was money, how long has it been in certain accounts with certain banks? I don't know why you're upset. I mean,
Oh, I'm not, I think, I'm not upset, Counselor. I
I think we're splitting hairs here, and I think it's important to know where the money is, why it's not, why $50 million of $60 million in taxpayer money is in outside banks versus inside banks. I think that was the gist of the motion. I'm just trying to figure out when the bid was. When did Bank of America win the bid?
We will get you that information.
We don't know how long Bank of America has been doing the check, they've been having the operating account. I think, honestly, that's basic information. It's been a year, has it been at 2 years, been at 5 years?
They have been the lead bank since I've been here. I don't know when they
Okay.
won the bid. I would have to go back prior, because the treasurer who was here before I got here was the one who awarded it to Bank of America. I don't know when that was.
Okay, I don't think that's good information to know. It's been with Bank of America. How often is that required to be bid? Is it every 3 years? I don't think you can bid anything more than 3 years
I
anyway,
believe
right?
it's every 3 years. I'm not sure.
Okay. How many other banks bid the last time?
I don't have the bids. I can try and find out.
Okay. Okay, on your report, can I ask some other questions? Because this is investment policy. Under security, I just don't know what, and it's probably simple abbreviations, but under notes on the last page, and it's just small amounts of money, and I see Schwab. What is FH? Is that Federal Home Loan Bank under the third one? I'm sorry, you probably don't have it. This is your report dated September 1st. It was on the.
I don't have that. I thought the meeting was about the policy that was referred.
Okay. All right, well, I'll ask you later. I don't know. It looks like maybe some it's Fannie Mae, Federal Home Loan, some other outside banks. Okay. I'm just,
I
you know,
remember off the top of my head what you're talking about. Those investments are actually managed by Enterprise Bank. We do not make the investment decisions on those. Those are trust funds. They're different.
Why is that? Why don't we make those? So we have Enterprise Bank manage those for us?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Why is that? Why doesn't the treasurer do it? And there's probably a good reason, Mr. Moses.
There's a
I
very
really
good
don't know much about this. That's why we're having the subcommittee meeting.
There's a very good reason, because to trade in these securities, you have to, if you were to trade them directly, you'd have to be registered by the SEC.
Thank you. That makes sense.
And the bank their investment arm is registered.
Okay, very good. So many of the questions that I asked had concerns and questions about, because I also spoke with a local banker, and I understand the point of putting together a program, but I also have the same concerns that placing additional restrictions. Why don't we just put the money in these local banks without these restrictions? I understand the state is doing that, and I understand your point as well. We want to know and make sure that local banks are lending to local homeowners or potential homeowners and businesses. But I also agree with Councilor Caulfield. They're lending it to local organizations. And my fear is that these additional restrictions will will prevent or they may not want to, they may not want to proceed with this. And just having the city invest in local banks makes a lot more sense to me, considering they're all very stable banks. They all cater to local people. Clearly, we've had some problems with the Bank of America. Luckily, the administration was able to get all of those back taxes, $500,000 in back taxes, back to the city. So I just think it makes logical sense to invest in the communities. It's local jobs. It's helping keeping local jobs, and as well as keeping the economy here on the local level thriving by giving them the liquidity. What was the difference, Mr. Moses? You said you called around, or what was the difference between what we got with the other banks versus the local banks? The variance, isn't it marginal? I was told by one bank individual that it's 0.1%.
That varies. I know when I talked with Treasurer McGurl when he made a substantial investment with Enterprise had beaten all the other banks by about 30 or 40 basis points. Similar when he made the decision to move some additional money into Century, it was more like 70 basis points. That spread between a high bank and its competitors varies depending on interest rates and depending on a particular bank's appetite for deposits. Yeah, Bank A may give you a big premium 1 month and then not be able to place those assets in loans quickly, lose their appetite for deposits, and shrink their interest rate. So it varies from month to month.
Would that account for the reduced return from July, on the last page of this report, from July to June? I mean, it went from 28,426 down to 10,337. Actually, it just consistently, with the exception of a couple of months, I guess it fluctuates. Why the variance between 28 and 10?
I don't have the report you're looking at.
This is the report that you gave us, September 1st.
I know, that report was several months ago, and again,
September 1st.
I looked at the agenda. The agenda referred the LEAP program to this meeting. If the agenda were clear that it was talking about the balance report, I would have had it and been able to answer your questions. But the motion was to refer the LEAP program to the subcommittee, so that's what I came here prepared to talk about.
Well, isn't everything intertwined investment policy?
No, this is the LEAP program is a completely separate, distinct policy, brand new.
Great.
And if I may,
Doesn't it-
this was the report that was forwarded on to the subcommittee, not that report.
Have we met on this before? Are we going to argue on what we should be discussing, or is it more important?
I'm more than happy
Is
to.
it more important to talk about the investments, the yields that the city and taxpayers should be seeing, or worrying about what was referred or what was not? We've been
Mr. Chairman,
discussing about.
I'm more than happy to talk about anything you want to talk about. Just warn us ahead of time what it is so that we come prepared. And as regards to the yield that we're getting, in a general sense, I can speak to that we always seek the highest yield. And that is why there are occasions when the money is invested outside of the city. I'm hearing mixed messages right now. I'm hearing get the highest yield, and I'm hearing put it in local banks. We can't do both.
Well, we don't know.
We'd like to do both.
We
but
don't know
can't
what you're
necessarily.
getting, because you can't tell me, because apparently you didn't bring the report. Look, when I go to meetings to talk about investment, if I were sitting there, I would bring every report that I produced, just to reference it, maybe in the future, just for future references, because I think this is an important issue. It's a 4-page report produced by Mr. Moses. It wasn't months ago. It was September 1st. And I think it's
2 months
relatively important when we're talking about investing in local banks, what the yields are, and how we derive them. Because we're hearing conflicting information that you called around, but you didn't call around. I'm hearing I'm hearing information that the difference between, and maybe the local banks could be as competitive.
Yeah.
Council Mercier said she called other local banks, so.
And you're saying we didn't, and that's a lie. That's a lie. Our treasurer reported to me.
I'm not saying anything, Mr. Moses.
Our treasurer, you just said it.
I spoke to a local banker, Mr. Moses, and he said you didn't call him. So perhaps we can get a report on who did call, what calls were made,
I'm sure the calls were made by Mr. McGurl.
what the interest was. Well, maybe there's a report. What was offered? You're right, Mr. Manager. Maybe Mr. McGurl did call. What was offered and what the difference is with the other banks. That's all.
Okay. We'd be happy to come back and address these concerns in more detail with the information when we're advised of exactly the information that's being sought.
Anything else? Councilor Mendonça.
Back to the LEAP program. If we recommend that this move forward, how soon could we have the money available to those banks interested?
I think almost immediately.
Almost immediately. All right. I mean, given what I've reviewed of the program, it's at least worth floating it and seeing what happens. And then if it doesn't work, we can come back and see what we need to do to work with these local banks. If the chair doesn't mind, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that we move forward with the LEAP program as it's written, and then we'll get some feedback in 3 months as to how it's gone, if we've gotten any interest in it.
Second.
Okay, motion made to proceed with this program. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
So,
opposed?
Essentially, I meant to recommend to the full council.
Right, recommend to the full council, I understand. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So ordered. Why don't we plan, if there's no objection from the subcommittee, why don't we plan on meeting in another week or another 2 weeks? Is there some specific information or request you want me to make here for the next meeting?
Feel free.
Well, I'd like to discuss, again, the September 1st in more detail. We can figure out when the investments are made, and I can't come up with any of these questions right now, so maybe we can just talk about this in more length. If I sprung this on you, that was not my intent. I thought they all fold together. I'm just trying to get some information. I'm just trying to ask some questions. I'm not trying to spring anything on anybody. Councilor Broderick?
Thank you. We could refer the specific report so that everyone has it, but I think procedurally we may have to do it from the council floor. So I don't know if we can make a recommendation to send it or if we have to file a motion, but I think the full body has to send it to us.
Well, we did discuss this at the last Finance Subcommittee meeting, and the report, both the investment policy and the report that Mr. Moses provided was referred, so however we want to do it, doesn't matter to me.
Whichever. If it's already been sent over, then we can just...
We'll just post,
Continue.
we'll just post it in a different manner. How's that? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moses. Thank you, Mr. Manager. We're just trying to, I'm just trying to understand exactly the process, the procedure. It's a learning curve for me, and I'm sure members of the council. And so we appreciate it. Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Councilman Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? So ordered.